It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Well, good day and welcome to the program. It is County-Wide. Brad Miller with you, and we're happy to welcome into studio today. Margie Beach is here, and Gary Wagner from Rainbow Acres. Our friends from Rainbow are here to see us.
Good morning.
How are you? Good to have you back, Gary. We talk to you about once or twice a year, I think. We have you come in and kind of give us an update, and we'll do that today. One of the biggest updates, though, perhaps, is the lady sitting to your right, who is not going to be probably unfamiliar to many of our listeners and viewers. Margie Beach has been a strong force in our community in many, many ways. We don't have time to talk about your involvement, madam, in all of those kinds of things, but the most recent affiliation is with Rainbow Acres.
It is.
You've been there how long now?
4 months.
Doing
tomorrow.
what? 4 months.
4 months.
Already, okay.
I'm Director of Communications and Community Relations. How perfect is that?
That's what got you here at this table today.
Right.
Well, we're happy about that, and certainly, Gary, I'm sure that Rainbow Acres is. And so when Margie called us up and wanted to do a program here in the fall, we said, well, sure, let's talk about Rainbow. There's always so many kinds of things happening out there, so we'll get kind of an update. I think a couple of things that we wanted to talk about, Gary, that you mentioned, was getting the community involved in some of Rainbow's programs.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, through a special grant, we have received funding that will enable local residents with developmental disabilities to come to Rainbow for what is called the day program.
Okay.
And they can check in about 8 o'clock in the morning for the day program. They may come and stay till 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening. They must meet the admission standards for Rainbow. But once we know what who they are as a person, then we welcome them into the program. They can come as often as 2 days a week or as often as 5 days a week for the day program. They are assigned to a house, a men's house or a women's house, according to gender. Mm-hmm. And they can get some vocational training. They get some continuing education. They get social and recreational opportunities, but the best part is they get to make friends,
right,
and be with friends. And for adults, for families who have an adult living at home and not quite sure what happens in the future, this is a perfect way to get acquainted with Rainbow. And when parents age and are no longer able to take care of that loved one, Rainbow may be the perfect option for them.
Test the waters.
And a comfortable option. And Margie has a great story to tell about a family for whom this is important.
Let me really quick, though, I think I've got my cart ahead of my horse just a tiny bit. I'm assuming that our listeners and viewers will know and be familiar with Rainbow Acres. But for those who aren't, Rainbow, you have about how many ranchers?
We have 93.
93 now.
Yes.
And these are folks with developmental disabilities that typically live
yes.
there at the ranch. So when we talk about the day program, that differentiates.
Yes. And it was totally designed to serve men and women living in the community,
right,
and perhaps people living in the homes with their parents.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Margie has a story for us.
Let's
hear that.
Austin. Austin's story is that he was born and has lived all his life in Camp Verde. It was obvious from his birth that he was going to have cognitive and physical challenges. When his mother remarried and they started having a family, his mother and stepfather found themselves overwhelmed with raising new infants and having Austin and with his challenges. And his grandmother, who had been very involved in his upbringing, anyway, took over as guardian when he was 9 years old. His grandmother has now been his guardian for 11 years. He's 20 years old. He has one more year of high school this year, eligibility in the state of Arizona, but she's getting to a point where it's getting very difficult to continue working and caring for him. Austin came as a day program participant in June, I believe it was, of this year. What a change, what a difference it made in his life. Yeah. Again, that social aspect, making friends, learning to grow up and make some decisions for himself and things like that. His grandmother is thrilled. She's a friend of mine, and she is thrilled with the changes that have taken place in Austin because of his participating in our day program.
Can I ask, I don't want to intrude too deeply into Austin's family.
Yes.
Nor during that time had they come to Rainbow Acres, which it sounds like is just down the road.
Correct.
Very close, right here in the neighborhood.
Right.
Did they not know about Rainbow? Did they misunderstand Rainbow?
I would say misunderstand is what happened. I know I had mentioned it to Linda. She knew it was there. She didn't think it would be a good fit religiously.
Yeah.
As it turns out, it's a perfect fit for her. It's a Christian-based organization, and she's very, very happy with everything that Austin has been exposed to within our programs.
And that's exactly the point I wanted to get to. That even though, Gary, you've been here for many decades now, Rainbow has been in Camp Verde for decades, that there is still, even though we do these shows and you do a lot of community outreach, many people in the public sphere understand Rainbow and what it's about, but here we have a family who even has, in this case, a grandson who could and would and now is doing very well with Rainbow, who kind of didn't get it.
Yes, and it's all about perceptions, and so in order to check people's perceptions, we encourage folks to come and visit us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Come and take a tour of the ranch. Mm-hmm. We do tours 5 days a week, and mornings are the best time to do a tour. Parents can come solo. They can bring their child with disabilities. I mean, we are accustomed to welcoming people where they are,
right.
and then as people get acquainted, one of the best things people can do is come to some of our events at the Palmer Center, the free concerts that we do, 8 or 9 of each year. And it gives you a chance to mix and mingle and see and that kind of thing.
Kind of ease into it a little.
Ease into it,
get a better understanding.
And we don't hound people on the telephone after they make an inquiry or a visit. We let them move at their own pace, and that's really the only way.
I have to think, Margie, go ahead.
By the way, the next opportunity for people to come out, whether they are guardians of someone with disabilities or not, they're welcome to come to our next concert at Palmer Community Center on the 23rd. It's Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock of 23rd of September.
I'm thinking I can go online and probably find a schedule of these kinds of things.
It's on our website. We have events, and it's there.
Okay, great way to do it. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, I want to explore just a tiny bit more about that and about people kind of understanding what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to get at, or hope we can a little bit, is kind of knock down the concerns that a lot of times the caregivers will have about letting go. That has to be part of that trick as well. Our guest today from Rainbow Acres in Camp Verde, Gary Wagner, Margie Beach. We'll take a break and be back to Countywide right after this. Welcome back to the program again, Countywide today. Gary Wagner, Margie Beach from Rainbow Acres in Camp Verde. Again, kind of talking about that letting go of the caregiver, whether it's parents, grandparents, whatever. And we kind of talked about the prospective ranchers coming to the day program and learning and becoming probably very enthusiastic most cases. Mm-hmm. But I can see how that would be very good training also for those caregivers and those folks. It has to be hard.
It is hard
to do that.
And there is no typical parent or guardian caring for. The family dynamics within every family is so different. But oftentimes parents feel so strongly that it's their responsibility to take care of this child and be everything for that child primarily because of guilt. And as a result of that, they hang on perhaps way longer than they should. Yeah. We have to work as a society to say, developmental disabilities is not a guilt thing. It's, it happens, and there are very clear reasons why it happened, but it is not. It's not something that should be attended with guilt. And you'll find, particularly among the younger adults with disabilities, they're ready to be launched. They want out of the house, and they want friends of their own, and they want activities, and they want a life. And because of that, when they arrive, they just explode with growth. I mean,
They do.
they
Ready to
blossom
go.
in so many ways.
Yeah.
And part of it's a positive peer pressure.
Sure.
The good support. Part of it's because of the way the caregivers, laundry.
Yeah.
The washing machine's that way.
Yeah.
I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah.
And the ranchers really like that. Brad,
Go ahead.
the other piece of this is that parents and guardians need and want peace of mind about the future for their loved one, and that's where Rainbow does it better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because we're oriented toward the person, not to the masses.
A lot of times, as I understand it, the caregiver will think, well, nobody's going to understand Billy or Janie like I do. No one can provide for them like I do.
They haven't seen our application yet.
And then there's your answer.
Our
Right?
application's about 40 pages long and takes about 40 hours.
People don't in that situation don't realize that they're not alone in that boat.
We
Right.
had a rancher family transfer from a facility in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and brought their daughter to Rainbow. And like I say, the application at that point was extensive, and we had references, and we had all kinds of medical and psychological evaluations, and so we knew the rancher fairly well before the interview, and then we accepted them. And then when they moved in, it's an 8-hour-day process. I mean, they check in at the office at 8 o'clock for a meet and greet, and they finish. That's not unpacking. They finish the orientation and checking in with the caregivers and house parents, and that's the biggest block of time on their schedule through the day. And I asked, how did this compare to the facility back in Pennsylvania? She said, back in Pennsylvania, we dropped our daughter off and we were gone within an hour. We have never experienced an orientation like this, but you know our daughter as well or better than we do now.
Yeah, there's that peace of mind you talked about.
Yeah.
All right, a great way to find out a little bit more about Rainbow Acres if you are local and you think that their service might be for you, to find out about the day programs. Sounds like a great way.
And 2 ways to do that. Our webpage is www.rainbowacres.com, and our phone number locally is 567-5231.
Great way to find out. Let's talk about some other things. Margie, you have some things on your agenda there that I think you wanted to bring to the table today. Always excitement at Rainbow Acres. Every time you come in here, Gary, we have, this, that, and the other. What's this, that, and the other
as
this
you
time?
know, in the last 10 years, Rainbow Acres has built 9 brand new homes and the Palmer Community Center, which is gorgeous, beyond belief. And now we are embarking on another building opportunity, and I'm going to let Gary take it from here, the housing that we're building now.
We are building 8 independent living apartments or assisted living apartments for single individuals. And this is made possible through a grant from the Arizona Department of Housing. And this is equal housing opportunity kind of housing. It is a low-income housing for people with disabilities, and it will help us meet a need for those who are higher functioning, able to sustain themselves, but their parents just want to know that there's a support system in place in the event that their needs change or there's a significant event in their loved one's life. So out of the 8 apartments, 1 will have a manager who will be a resource person to the 7 ranchers living there. And we're anticipating that those individual ranchers will have jobs in the community. They'll be in charge of their own life. They'll do their own grocery shopping. If they're eligible for food stamps and stuff, they'll have to learn how to manage that and navigate that course. And be responsible as nearly as independent adults as they can be.
Sure. And I think that's a good distinction to make, that at Rainbow Acres you will find ranchers who have differing kind of levels of
Right.
independence
Oh, absolutely.
and ability. And that has to be kind of tricky too, to make those assessments and to understand and then to serve.
Yes, and
accordingly.
the thing is, we never want somebody to become institutionalized,
Yeah.
and we never want to dumb people down. We want to keep pushing them for growth as long and far as possible.
Sure, sure. Part of how it works at
Want
Rainbow
them to reach
Acres.
their potentials.
As we're going along for our radio listeners on the TV side on Channel 2 in the Verde Valley, some photos that I think, Margie, you sent of what's going on, the building projects and whatnot at Rainbow Acres. But as we're kind of doing a Kick the Tires show and a visit, as we've talked about,
Right.
whether you're going to take advantage of Rainbow Acres, if you have someone who is going to be a candidate to be enrolled there as a rancher or what have you, maybe you're thinking of volunteering or just are part of the community and say, well, I've never been out there, I'm going to come and see.
Well,
I
absolutely.
think people would be surprised when they look at the campus.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, would be surprised. First time I saw it, Rainbow Acres, as you said, has been there for decades. It's been there 38 years, since 1974.
Yeah.
First time I saw Rainbow Acres, it was mobile homes,
Yeah.
rather old mobile homes where the ranchers lived. And now it's this beautiful facility, almost like a suburb in a modern city.
It is. It is its own little community.
Gorgeous.
When I was going to say, are we going to still be able to say ranchers if we get apartments, Gary? I don't know. We're going suburban.
Well, it could
Are
be.
we still ranchers?
We're still a ranch. We have horses and goats.
That makes you a ranch, no matter what you're living in. It's horses and goats will do it. We need to take another short break. When we come back, more with Gary Wagner and Margie Beach from Rainbow Acres. RainbowAcres.com for more information. A break and back after this. Welcome back to the program. Again today, our guest, Margie Beach, Gary Wagner from Rainbow Acres. It's rainbowacres.com, online, and 567-5231, and located in Camp Verde, just its own little community near our neighbors in Camp Verde. Gary, you always bring us a story. Are you going to do that again
Oh,
today?
absolutely.
I thought you would.
One of our greatest stories and excitement these days is around Matthew. Matthew came to us about 5 years ago. Actually, he came to us 5 years ago when he was about 21. However, I met him when he was 15. And he did a tour of the ranch. His parents were thinking about the future and what their plans were for Matthew. And so at the end of the conversation, at the end of the day, asked Mom and Dad if they had any final questions. Then I turned to Matthew and said, do you have any final questions? And he said, oh, yes, I have one. And he says, after my dad and mom drop me off and move me in here, can they have supper with me before they leave home? And on that, Mom was out of the room like lightning. And Matthew and I finished our conversation. I went out to the lobby, and Mom had collapsed in a puddle of tears because she was not yet ready to give up Matthew and have him thinking that far ahead. But he was.
Yeah.
Matthew is his condition is one where he's had need of tremendous supports. He was homeschooled all of his life. They tried a community-assisted living program. It did not work. And I found them again when that program wasn't working for him. And I said, bring him back to Rainbow. This is where he needs to be.
Yeah.
And so he came. Matthew, like every rancher who wants to work and feel normal and be normal and do things that normal people do, wanted to work off the ranch. And so he developed skills, and he worked at Sedona Recycling and other skills. And about 6 months ago, the National Park Service came to us from Montezuma's Castle and Tuzagoot, came to us and said, do you have somebody that could help us with custodial work? And Matthew came right to mind as being, he has the personality for meeting people, he has the attention to detail, he has the skills. and he has the drive and determination.
He's the man.
And he was the man. And so we got him on, and he got his training at Montezuma's Castle. And then a few months ago, they transferred him over to Tuzagut. And that kid is 6 feet tall, not literally, but figuratively. I mean, he stands taller. He loves his uniform, and he would never consider missing a day of work because he's so grateful for the opportunity. So what I want to say to that as not only Matthew's story, but any employer that has opportunity to employ people with disabilities, you'll find out they're faithful. They never get the blue flu. They're punctual, and their attendance is almost perfect. So they're great employees.
And many businesses I know in the community have partnered very successfully with Rainbow Acres. You can become a part of that as well in the business community. Guys, thank you so much for coming in, sharing again with us some great stories, some exciting things happening at Rainbow Acres. Gary Wagner, Margie Beach, rainbowacres.com online. We thank you for joining us. It's countywide, and we'll see you next time.